Greetings, Warlords. Rodge here. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the skirmish miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. Today we are joined by Dan. Dan, how's it going over there?
It's going great, Rodge. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, thanks for coming back on. So we are keeping the Age of Chivalry faction review train alive here, and you graciously volunteered to talk about the free companies, and that is pretty awesome. Now, folks will know you started with the Swiss there. So how did you kind of transition to the free companies, or were you playing them all along, or how did that work out?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I did start with the Swiss. I really I started with them long before the book was even released. So yeah, I think everyone knows how that goes. You pick a faction, you don't know what's in the book. I picked them because I thought they were cool and different. I normally pick weird factions, and like, oh no, Warlord, that's as weird as it gets.
That's pretty weird. That is weird.
Yeah, it is. And I've played them a ton. I probably got close to 30 games in with the Swiss at this point, a lot of tournament games with them. I've enjoyed playing them overall. They're a good army. This isn't a review about them. They are kind of a one of one. So if you paint the real Swiss models, as I at least attempted to do, they look cool, I think, but they don't really pass for anything else in the book. So I thought as my next step in Chivalry, let's try to do some of the more generic models. And I had played against the free companies many times. In fact, I think the majority of my tournament games at this point, or at least half, have been against the free companies. I've played them elsewhere. And I tried them out in local games as well. And I love them. I think they're, if I'd just gotten the book and picked the factions after seeing them all, this is probably the one I would have picked. This is my sort of board, my sort of army. And so I've really enjoyed them. I've played them in 2 different doubles events. I played them in a lot of local games around here. I'll be taking them to a tournament here in October as well. So yeah, just loving them. I would also say, I think anyone considering them, they're a great choice if you're not totally sure where to go with Chivalry. Maybe you're thinking French, but you're not sure, for example. Why not paint them up? And you can start with free companies and go in whatever direction later on. I think it could almost be anybody.
Yeah. So that's the awesome thing. This warband, basically everybody should pay attention, because anybody with most of the factions, if you're not kind of locked into a specific look, although I'm sure many of the Swiss figs could be used to bulk out your warriors or something, maybe. If you kind of more halberd or pole arm type troops, or the levy, or but basically you can use straight up the French, the English. This is basically when they took a break from the wars. These guys still gotta make some money, I guess, and we're quite well known for pillaging France and stuff like that. I believe there is it's free companies in English, but in the original French, there's something kind of nasty like the flayers or something like that. There's a really disparaging term for them, and that kind of follows through with the names of the abilities that maybe we're not totally picking up on the English title here. But they did not like these guys. They were a real problem. The states and the kings would come up with various schemes to try to funnel them to different countries and stuff, get them down in Spain, or send them over to Hungary, or fight the Ottomans or something, anybody can play these with almost any models. And all right, so let's actually take a look then at the equipment options here. In some ways, not quite as wide as the other ones, but you can see the Warlord Hearthguards can be mounted, so they can be on foot. Warriors can be mounted, so they can be on foot. One unit can be equipped with the pavises, and then levies with bows or crossbows. So no barding, but pretty much got everything else covered here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is another reason. We'll talk about maybe difficulty later on, but this is another reason for what I was saying. You can also shift into this army so easily, because you're right. They don't have the barding. They don't have pikes or things like that. But look what they do have. Foot-mounted Warlord, foot-mounted Hearthguard, foot-mounted Warriors, and either crossbow or bow levy. So if you started with Bretons and you just got bows, no problem. Started with French and you have crossbows, no problem. and they even got the unit of Pavis. So if you started with that, some of the factions that can take it, you can slide right into this warband with no problem. And I think it's another attractive thing about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say this is a pretty good selection here. So this kind of came up recently. You know, this is coming out when it's coming out, but as of a couple of days ago, I recorded the Condottieri faction review, and some of the points here are many of the factions, the Warlords and the Hearthguards, have to be mounted, or they're locked into a mounted configuration. So we have the flexibility here, which is nice. And then a lot of factions, the Warriors can't be mounted at all. So that's actually quite a good option to have. You know, a lot of folks would prefer to use Warriors as their main fighting units. So the ability for those to be mounted is kind of a big deal. You know, in some factions, that mounted hitting power is reserved for the Hearthguards in some ways. So just having that flexibility to take some of those options I just mentioned, I think it's pretty big.
It is. And, you know, you're dealing with Scots, Swiss, maybe Flemish. I haven't played against them, but the ability to put the Hearthguard and Warlord on foot is huge there. Right? Maybe you don't want to most of the time, but you can if you need to. That's really big.
Yeah, so we got to remember we got 3 Pike factions here. And I know a lot of people, you know, there's a Pike mercenary unit that gets mentioned fairly regularly. People seem to like it. So just being able to be like, you know what, I don't want to worry about that today. So I'm just going to put them on foot for this one is huge. So yeah, great flexibility here. So what do you like to take, I guess, kind of lately, or what have you kind of honed in on for your warband of Free Company?
Yeah, so this is it's kind of alluded to. This is a work in progress for me, but I've been really liking the foot version of this for the most part. So I do the Warlord on foot, 2 points of Hearthguard on foot, 2 points of Warriors on foot, one point of Warriors mounted, because there is a lot of utility there with this board. It's not obvious, but we'll talk about some of it. And then the 1 point of Levy with crossbows, which I feel are super strong in this army. We'll talk about why too.
Okay,
but they're not mandatory. So if you're someone who doesn't want to do Age of Crossbows, I think there are a number of there's some great warrior mercenaries you could fill that slot with. Maybe like the pikemen, maybe the longbowmen, there's the Lombard Lancers. A lot of great choices could fill that slot too.
Okay, cool. Well, that'll give us you know, some idea here on the troops as we dive into the abilities. And so up top, nothing special going on there, so I'll just get to that first ability there. Cruel Slaughter. So the first of the kind of fun, mean, bad guy sounding abilities here. Takes an uncommon melee, gain 2 attack dice. If your unit's armor is higher than the enemy unit's armor, gain 2 more. So, yeah, I mean, seems pretty good. It's uncommon, though. You end up finding the dice for this?
Well, first comment I'll make here applies to most of the board, which is this is one of those armies where you're saying what you're doing in the course of the game. You're kind of looking over your shoulder. Am I going to end up on a TikTok video and lose my job or whatever? Because names in here are really, there's something else. I mean, Ordenstadt probably gives them a run for the money, but I don't know. It's pretty bad. So, we start off with a great example, which is Cruel Slaughter, right? This is an essential ability on the board.
Okay.
It's only playable with an uncommon, as you say. This is your big source of attack dice on the board. There are a couple others we'll see, but they tend to be smaller contributors to attack dice or more situational. So this is how you get more attack dice with the army. And here I want to comment a little bit on what I think is kind of, if you're a Saga nerd like me, this book was written by the same author as Age of Invasions. And both this faction and Saxons have what I think is the author's design philosophy for armies that are less professional and well-equipped overall than their peers, but that do really well when they beat up on the weak and unarmed. So the Saxons are, of course, the army I'm thinking about. And what do we think of them? They're invading Britain, right? And it's been left defenseless by the Romans. And so in that context, they're effective, maybe not so good going against the real Roman army, right? And that army has a very similar theme that we see in this ability straight away. higher armor than the opponent gives you more value. So you want to be the bully here, right? To be beating up on the guys that are weaker than you. There's different ways we're going to create that circumstance, but this is a reason why I've got 2 points of Hearthguard in my list. I've heard of people taking 3 because easier to get to this target if you're starting from 5, but there are other ways to get to this target as well.
Yeah. I played the Saxons a ton, and they got kind of 2 abilities that require high armor, and it can be pretty difficult to get this off. Obviously it's going to do something for you, 2 attack dice, but you want the big effect. So yeah, having some Hearthguard around is pretty big, I think. But there is an ability we'll get to later on. It's kind of like a 2-for-1 here. It helps you get those warriors in the right frame of mind to do some killing here. So they got a little help with their board, it seems like. But yeah, just having some Hearthguard here to take advantage of this is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, now the other quick note on this one is I mentioned I take Crossbow Levy. This ability's importance in actually generating extra attack dice. It is one reason I've thought about, and I've heard of others saying, I don't like to take the Crossbow Levy. I want my uncommon for this. And we're going to see there's 2 other big abilities that also are uncommon dependent. So although crossbows are strong, here's already a reason to maybe think twice and go for something else in that slot that's a warrior type unit.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because you kind of got to think about your crossbow strategy. Are you just going to take 1 unit? Many factions can eat that obligatory shot pretty easily each turn. So you're kind of sucking a Saga dice from the opponent. There's various aspects to consider, but just something to think about as well. If you kind of buck the Crossbow Levy trend, you got another point of warriors or Hearthguard. Units are a little bigger, so something to consider. All right. Next one down here, Mob Violence. This is an common activation ability. You can activate up to 2 units to move or up to 2 units to charge. So the limitation is it's got to be the same thing, but it can be on opposite sides of the board. There's no restrictions. Can be Levy, can be Hearthguard, any combination as long as they're doing the same thing here. So, really, I'm guessing no reason not to load this sucker up. Right?
Yeah, so look, if you played a lot of Saga, right? The Irish laugh at this, Alexander armies laugh at this for efficiency, but in the context of chivalry, the Mongols definitely laugh at this, right? But in the context of chivalry, this is a great multi-activation. It's a common, so it's hard to imagine the turn where you wouldn't use this, because you can just use it to move 1 or charge 1. There's no downside to having almost no downside to having this on the board. So yes, this is like the closest thing I think I've seen in chivalry to an autoplay ability. Like maybe the French have one where it's like if you get the rare, you got to do it. But this is like every single turn with free companies, you're doing this. It is a little tricky because to get the full value from it, right, I got to have 2 moves that I want to do. And as you get into the later game, often it's more like I want to do 1 charge, 1 shoot, 1 move, and that's I can't afford to do anything else. Early game, you might really want to do more like 3 moves or a move and a shoot. So, but again, super high value. I'm using this basically every single turn of every game I've played. If you do play in the doubles format, this is an excellent reason to play this army.
Yeah, I get a little. It's like half your army at that level.
It is. So the value on this, and of course, even if all you want to do is move 1 unit, if that unit is your Crossbow Levy, this is still an efficiency gain because it's not an uncommon. Mm-hmm. This is also why I've heard of people taking 2 9-packs of Crossbow Levy in this army. Is you use this to move both of them up,
get them into position.
Everyone else is raw Saga, but they've at least gotten into position, so it can work for that.
Yeah. Great, Bill. If you're going to activate 1, you haven't decided, compared to putting a dice up top, it's not Warriors, Hearthguard, or Levy. It can be, a lot of the times, your plan kind of depends on what happens. I've loaded up this melee. Hopefully it goes the way that I'm planning here, and then I can do this. But sometimes, circumstances change halfway through. And so just being able to basically move or charge any of your units is tasty as in and of itself. So
sometimes a good place to put, if you do the pre-roll of 3 in your second, there's another one I would do first personally, but sometimes this is a good one to load in that first roll of 3 if you're not going to be under immense pressure turn 1. Just on the off chance you get nothing but uncommons the next time, this will bail you out.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I'm always a fan of the preloading, just kind of regular activations and stuff like that, just to have it locked in. All right. Next up, we have Cowardice. This is an uncommon orders ability, and I'm going to let you explain how this one works. Once I see a certain level of text, then I shunt it off to my guest here, so that we've hit that amount of text here.
Yes, so this is an orders ability, so you'll play it in your orders phase. Obviously, you can play it at the beginning or the end of your orders phase or anywhere in between as usual. So you're going to pick an enemy unit with this ability. It can be any enemy unit, but it does have to be more than S away from any hero or Hearthguard. So if we're thinking heroes, remember that does include the Knight mercenary if your opponent is fielding that. And obviously Hearthguard. I don't think there's any Hearthguard mercs, but people often bring Hearthguard here. So it has to be more than S away from them. Obviously, also, you cannot play this on heroes and Hearthguard. I mean, it doesn't directly say you can't, but you can because they're within S of themselves, right? So typically, what are you playing this on? Typically, you're going to be playing this on Levy or Warriors. I think it could work on the cannon. Yeah. So, but other things too.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, sure. If it can move.
The big play for this is Levy and Warriors, and really levies suffer pretty heavily on this one. So what does it do to them then? If the condition is met, they must immediately activate to move, and they must move as far away as possible from the free company player's table edge. So this ability is the first one that I'll point to. That I have had multiple opponents describe this army as having magic spells. This is the first one. They're not in a good way, right? They're really not enjoying it. And this is pretty unenjoyable when it happens to you, particularly me, but I'll share that in a minute. Very strong, right? So you push them back. If they're mounted, they'll go back L, provided they can. If they're foot, they'll generally go back M. Now, if they're pike, they'll only move back S. But you can do really clever things with this with terrain. So you can force mounted to move. This is not a withdrawal. This is a move. You can force them to move into swamps. You can force anyone to move into a swamp. You can force them just to move into, swamp may be harder, but getting them to move back into a field or rocky ground when they're on horses or whatever, that's cool. But the very obvious, super strong play on this is in all the objective and hill-based scenarios. Because this is an order, and there's no defense here except proximity, right? So if they forgot about this, or they're playing Swiss, which again I'll get to in a minute, you push them back off of this. So a lot of people do this, right? They move up to just within VS of the objective, or just within S of the objective, or maybe a little closer. You're going to have to come melee me to get me off of this. But not so. If they've exposed themselves to this, it's just you move back, I move up. I take the scoring opportunity this turn. And if you're scoring on my turn, great. I've also just pushed you out of the way. So this is tremendously powerful. And if you're playing against the Swiss, they have no heroes. They have no Hearthguard. You can do this to any unit in their army every single turn. So that's pretty great. But also it does penalize people that are not playing Swiss. If you go more the non-chivalry tradition of saying, I don't like Hearthguard, I think Hearthguard a bad value, I'm going to load up on Warriors and Levy, maybe mostly Warriors. Again, they're exposing themselves to the cowardice play when they do that.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, I hadn't really considered the objective part of it. And two, especially have to think with the objectives is if there's 3, they're spread out across the table. I think one of them scenarios has them within medium of the table edges. And so your opponent cannot, most configurations cannot keep every single unit within S of a hero or a Hearthguard when you need to cover the entire table. Even if you have like one Warlord, one Hearthguard unit, you're still going to have stuff bleeding out on the edges there, or they're really contorting their warband and movements in such a way to, like, if they're doing that, you're kind of winning too, as we say, with some of these abilities. If they're limiting what they're going to do just in fear of this, half the work is done. You don't even have to put the Saga dice down if they're going to put themselves in a worse position just to avoid this. So, what about for objectives aside, just kind of thinking like in a just kind of like a Clash of Warlords or a pitched battle, you're pushing them away from you, so it's going to be harder to fight and kill them. But kind of how do you use it then? Are you jumping the buddies unit that stayed behind, or and you think of more like a massacre point play? How would you use this?
Well, there's one play that I'm going to hold off on because it's on another ability. But like I said, one thing is to shove units into terrain that don't want to be in terrain, especially if they're partly in terrain. Things like pikes or horses just hate it, right? Pikes in particular, because they can't close ranks, they can't shoot. Now they're like half in, half out. They also don't really like to be moved back because they're such a slow unit. If you're playing against levy units, they're also hard to move for most armies, right? So just sending them back, it's a common for a common, but you're taking tempo off their game, right? It just means next turn they got to find another uncommon to shove this thing up. And what's a very common Saga scenario? They moved up their levy into terrain to get in range of me. They're going to shoot me next turn. But by shoving it back, they got to now move again and then shoot, taking a fatigue. So it's got a lot of uses there.
True, yeah.
But it can also be used to, like I said, one, I'm going to hold off, but another one is you can sometimes shove people in range of a unit that you're sure, like the 2-pack of warriors that's fatigued up. I know that'll fatigue bomb. You can actually shove somebody back into fatigue bomb range and then kill the unit. So there's some other stuff. It fits with the theme of this army, right?
Good ideas. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of possibilities here. Very difficult to play against for
unless you're French. So sure. I play against French armies that are like 4.5 points of Hearthguard.
Well, you really need the kind of like the second Hearthguard unit plus the Warlord can cover everything. For the most part. So some factions will do that, some won't. But all right, let's pop down to Spiteful Hate. Uses an uncommon or a rare. First time you use an enemy's fatigue, both increase your armor by 1 and reduce the enemy's armor by 1. Use that juicy rare, you gain both effects each time you use a fatigue. So, even the first one's pretty darn good. That's a lot of, warrior on warrior. They'll go to 3, you'll go to 5 for 1 fatigue. That's pretty good. And then this is the one, Cruel Slaughter, I think was the name of it, where it can be challenging getting that higher. I mean, it would flip-flop even the Hearthguard. The warriors could go to Hearthguard, take them from 4, you up to 5. So, juicy. But so is the rare? Is this where you want to put the rare?
It's not for me, and I guess at this point I'll just mention. I'm very enthusiastic about this board. I think that comes across. One of the reasons I'm enthusiastic about this board is it has, to me, the same thing that my favorite Saga army, the Goths, have, which is they have a board that does not require rares to function. It's certainly going to get better if you have them.
Yeah.
It doesn't require them to do the things that it does. So actually, the first place I put a rare most of the time is activation pool, but not on this.
Cool.
So why do I not put it on this? I think the uncommon effect is strong enough by itself to do what you need to do. And I actually kind of like 2 commons or a rare. We'll see why there's a bunch of commons. We already saw mob violence, right? A lot of need for commons here, so the activation pool is usually a pretty strong bet. And there's another one we'll get to where I think if you're going to do a rare, it's probably the best place for it. But this one, even the uncommon, is extremely strong. But we have to understand what we're doing, right? We are spending the Saga die, and that does nothing by itself. It has no immediate impact on the game.
Yeah.
Then you hand it over to the opponent. Then it comes back. They do whatever they do. Then it comes back to you, and then you use their fatigue, and you go up 1, they go down 1, right? So that is good, but you already would go up one or down one without this. So this is giving you one more effect. Obviously very strong for Cruel Slaughter to create the superior armor condition you need. Can be used in situations where otherwise it would struggle to get superior armor, like we both have one fatigue, situations like that.
Yeah.
It's just enough to push you over the top there. So it's good there. It's also a good defensive tool if you think you're facing someone who's got the big punchy unit and is going to double activate into you, and they don't care that they're carrying a fatigue, right? They're just going to accept that. Well, they might care a little bit more if it's going to go up and down. Mm-hmm. And this is also one where, you know, when the opponent's exhausted, you often have that question, like, do I just send them all the way down and ride out the sixes or five, whatever it is?
Yeah.
Or do I save myself? Well, here you don't really have to choose, right? You just get both. And especially, again, for Hearthguard and Warlord, I'm already at a 5. So fighting the exhausted unit, I pop this. I go to 6, unhittable. They go to 4, or they go down to 3, depending on what they are. 2. I will say the rare on this is probably maybe almost the only time in Saga where you could maybe justify burning more than one fatigue on an exhausted Warlord you're fighting. Because if it's me up one, him down one, me up one, him down one, me up one, down one, like you could use 1 or even 2. And by the end of it all, your warriors are armor 6 and unhittable, and he's armor 2. Maybe, but I don't normally use the rare much. Because I think the first effect is enough.
Okay. Yeah. That's really some interesting points. And especially like fatigued units on fatigued units, I think is really kind of interesting, where you're gonna power through because of this ability. So you just got more options for multi-charges if you want, or kind of over-activating to get into something. You can kind of get away with it more, as long as your target has a fatigue or 2 to play with. So.
I will note there are a couple armies. Just be careful you're playing free companies. Most of the time, this is amazing. There are a couple armies that have very strong counters to this. The Germans can use retreat after you play this and use their fatigue, and they just run away. And the Italians can, if you use this for a common, you're giving the Italians 4 attack dice and 4 defense.
Oh, that's
dice.
Right. Yeah, that one. Yeah, there's that one ability
I've had
that
matchup in real life, and it's very discouraging. But sometimes it's Saga, right? Sometimes they got cool stuff, and you just got to play into it and accept they're going to use their cool stuff against you. So,
okay, so a couple hard counters out there. That's fun. Let's move on to Renegades here. Use any old die you want. So they want you to be using this one here. Gain an attack die, just a little, Figured it needed a little extra something because the rest of it wasn't handy enough. But if you inflict at least 1 casualty, you can return 1 previously eliminated figure to one of your units with the same troop type as the enemy unit. And if you use a rare, you can return 2 for 2 casualties. So whatever your unit is doesn't matter, right? But if you're fighting enemy Hearthguard, and that's kind of the dream there, you can restore some of your Hearthguard. Is that right?
Yes. So the highest value here is clearly Hearthguard, right? You can bring back 1 or potentially 2 with this, at 2 if you do the rare. You do have to meet a certain set of conditions, right? Either you need to, if you're going for it, whether it's Hearthguard or Warriors, or I guess Levy, I've done it before. There's nothing better to do. Because remember, the common version of this is just combat bonus plus this. So
1 for 1, yeah.
It's fine, I guess, but you're obviously trying for more. And Hearthguard is the dream. You need to either have already lost 1 or 2 Hearthguard models, and depending on how cagey you play, maybe that's almost a given. Someone's going to shoot them off or something. Or where it's often used by me and others is the Hearthguard are fighting other Hearthguard, and like, I guess if the outcome is they don't kill any of my guys, okay, I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah,
but
you're going to take some hits, and a couple are going to go through. Yeah.
And boy, I tell you, and losing 2 you push your 8-pack into their 8-pack, right? You're all armor 5. You've all got some cool stuff on your board, maybe, right? Or they close ranks or whatever, right? It's not at all uncommon that you walk away from that losing 2 of your own guys. But here, and maybe you chip off 2 of theirs, right? With this ability, it's like, well, that was kind of a wash. We cleared some abilities, etc. but it's not a wash because I got my 2 guys back and your guys are still off the board. So as small as this sounds as a resurrection ability, it's very key. And people get excited about the Hearthguard with good reason. But remember, it works on warriors too. And this can, in a tight game, you're going up against someone who's as good as you are, maybe a little better than you are at the game, but it's close. Chipping away some warriors over the course of the game is good. And sometimes it's super clutch because you've got 2 mounted warriors in your depleted mounted warrior unit at the back. You get to put 2 back on that, and now it's a Saga die unit, and it's a scoring unit, and can go pick up an objective. So it's got tons of uses. It's an incredible ability, and contextually, it's the only resurrection ability in Chivalry, so that makes it stand out even more.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, most of the time, it'll just be warriors. And you can do it 3 times, that's a couple victory points. And if you're taking that 2 or 3 pack back up to 4, and you've still got turns 4, 5, and 6 to play, it's like 3 Saga dice you just restored from playing this ability here. So, yeah, very cool. Got the juices flowing.
Yeah, I would say in real life, I played against Britt, who've had on the channel before. Great player, great person, right? The game shifted from draw to a win for Britt. And I think we calculated it. The warriors he took from me, no Hearthguard, just the warriors he took from me, pushed it over. So a close game, this can be decisive, even just taking warriors back. Don't neglect it.
Yeah, good deal. Great little ability here. Right. Let's pop up to their obligatory shooting reaction. Sneaks and robbers. Any dice here once again. Unit cancels 2 hits. It suffers. If just straight up, if you use the rare, though, it cancels the casualties. So you'll get a chance to roll the defense dice before pulling those out. So if you get shot 3 times with the first one, you roll 1 defense dice to cancel 1 hit. If you use the rare, you'd roll 3 defense dice to cancel 3 hits. And then if anything got through, you take 2 off of it. Right? Did I say it right?
Yep. Yeah, no, that's how it works. So this is a great ability. This and, so I mentioned activation pool already, but this and Renegades, if we're not going to look at activation pool, both compete for my first rare. It really depends on who you're fighting. This ability is another one that very obviously incentivizes playing Hearthguard because you take fewer hits on average with Armor 5. So canceling 2 hits might be canceling all the hits versus your levy where it's canceling some. Now they have more bodies, so who knows what the math is, right? But I'm just saying this kind of steers you towards high armor units that take fewer hits overall because it's so effective in that situation. Even against crossbows. Crossbows shooting into armor 5, 3 hits on average because they got a +1. Well, even the common stops 2 of those and all. That's great. You don't even have to roll dice as part of it, right? There's no. And then the casualty one is even better. Obviously, they're going to have a monster shot, or you're going to have horrific luck on your saves to get through the rare on this. And like you said earlier, Rodge, many armies in the Age of Crossbows, what they give you each turn is the one big shot. This is your tool to get past that. Now, English or Pike armies or whatever, it's different. Even Bretons, it's a different story. But for Age of Crossbows, this is an outstanding ability.
Yeah, probably a third of the factions, probably any given time will just have the single crossbow unit you'll be up against. And some of these reactions spread out are more or less useful. But this one, rate this one pretty highly. And I'm sure its most powerful ability isn't really written in the language here because as soon as you pop this, it guarantees they're going to miss all their hits. And so you feel like you used it for no apparent reason. You just popped it. But it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't triggered the ability. Saga veterans can guarantee that. Right.
Or they'll get 6 hits on you or something.
That's the other thing. Yeah. All right. Den of Thieves here. Now, this is probably the one that makes opponent wince the most. I'm guessing, although maybe you can identify that at the end here. But orders are orders reaction, so super flexible. Remove fatigue from a friendly or enemy unit with an S of an area of terrain. Then place a fatigue on another unit from the same warband. So basically, you can move a fatigue from either one of your units to a friendly unit to kind of freshen somebody up, or use it on either turn, I guess. But move the fatigue from the little 2-man unit to the 8-man Hearthguard that we keep talking about. So area of terrain, does that include the hill? The hill
sure
is
does, Rodge.
terrain. Yeah, so that's why this is like you just gotta eat it, right, as the opponent. It's so difficult to not be with an S of terrain. Especially if the free company is trying to get the terrain out. So how does that affect your terrain deployment and stuff like that?
So I run on foot, as I said, the one mounted unit. So more terrain is better. I'm trying to get it out. I'm trying to have it as close to objectives as possible because, hey, I'm on foot, and there's a lot of mounted guys out here, so it jams them up great inherently. But then there's this, right? This is another one that, as you say, your army has a bunch of magic spells. This is This is BS.
Making people's kind of level.
I get it, because this is magic. This is about as magical, I think, not quite as calling down bolts of lightning from Thor or something right there, you see. But it is powerful, right? It's flexible. Orders reaction, either a common or an uncommon, so it's reliable. Now we have to be careful, right? There's two versions. One is move fatigue from one of my units to another one of my units. That one is good, and I've used it several times. Just be careful, because usually there's a lack of efficiency in that, right? Because I could use a common to rest my warriors or Hearthguard or Warlord or whatever, and that would clear the fatigue. Here, I'm not actually clearing it, I'm just relocating it. So
that's the thing. It's not creating anything out of thin air. So your opponent has to have the fatigue to be able to move it to another unit. So it's fair in that respect.
But for your own troops, it's still useful, right? So you could obviously have the situation where I pushed out with, say, your Pavis unit onto the objective or the hill or whatever. I double activated. I took a fatigue. I pull it back onto my Warlord, who A, has determination, and B, is behind my entire army. So he's at no risk, but the Pavis guys are probably getting charged. So it can be good on your guys, but on your opponent, people hate this ability. The last game I played with free companies, actually, I did the dream. I had knocked down a unit of warriors to 2 guys off in the woods, kind of out of play, and they had a fatigue. And within S of a piece of terrain was my opponent's 6-pack of mounted Hearthguard with 2 fatigues. So I just shifted it right on over. Now they're exhausted. Now that is efficient, right? Because that gives them a -1 to hit with all those attack dice. Mm-hmm. And now they're going to die. And indeed, they did die in a single melee with basically no losses on my side through depleted warriors. So this ability to shift fatigue on the opponent, very difficult. And so many, I think the Kansas City guys released their tournament packet. There's literally a scenario in there called Yet Another Hill. Because you go to a tournament, at least in America, there's going to be a scenario where the hill is in the middle, maybe 2 where the hill is in the middle, and then the one where it's not, you just put the hill in the middle yourself anyways, or something better, the fields or whatever. Mm-hmm. So this is super strong.
Yeah, it's like a large terrain piece will take up like a 6th or of the board, kind of a 16 by 16 inch bubble there. If you get 2 out plus another terrain piece, it's really difficult to not be with an S of some terrain. Your opponent might be able to get some key units out, but then they're playing against, you haven't even used the ability yet, and they're kind of finagling their warband to move around to avoid a potential thing that may or may not even happen. So, and
it's not the same unit of terrain, same piece of terrain, right? So they got the swamp they put in the corner, and they got a field here, and you're shifting it clear across the map. There's so much mental fatigue in trying to avoid that by about turn 3, anyone who's good enough to do that has forgotten about it.
Yeah, but if you're playing against it, it's going to happen. Whatever that you thought that you could finagle to avoid something, well, you just open yourself up to something, that's equally as bad. So however well you do, your free company opponent, you just have to assume they're gonna find the weak spot every time, despite your best ability. So, right. Well, let's move down to trickery. I guess there's just 1 2-die ability here, and it's 2 commons. So, gotta love that. At the end of the melee, remove a fatigue from your unit and place it on an enemy unit within medium. So. This is another one where you play Saga. This doesn't seem fair,
Yeah, so it's a 2-way shift, but it is 2 dice, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
I do. As good as this is, I sometimes have a hard time playing it because the dice. There's never enough Saga dice. It's Saga, right? But it's only 2 commons. When you can use it, it's very good. It is flexible. So you don't have to put the fatigue you remove on the same unit you had been fighting. It could be another unit that's within M. So I go fight this little 3-pack of Levy. I beat him up. After the melee, I take that fatigue that I would take and I put it on the Warlord that's near them, set them up for a charge, or at least slow them down. So you have a lot of flexibility there. There's some weird cases on this one, or So if your unit dies to a man, you don't get to put the fatigue because you don't take fatigue. So that's caught me out before. I didn't realize my unit was going to die in the melee. I'm like, oh, well, it's not putting a fatigue on them. It's moving one from you to them, right?
Good point, yeah.
If you end the melee and you're outside of M of any other enemy unit, that's an avoidable mistake, but it could happen. Yeah, so there's some questions. Oh, and then the other one is if you destroy the only enemy unit that was within M of you, do you still get to remove your fatigue, or now you stuck with it because there's no one to put it on?
Good point there.
My opponents have been generous and said, who could do more, can do less, just take your fatigue off. But I think there's an argument that, get good.
You could, yeah. I think there's an argument there. If someone wants to have an argument, they can have an argument. I agree. Yeah, good point. It doesn't actually help you win the melee or kill the opponent. This is kind of a 2 dice to set something up or put yourself in a good position, which you may be able to capitalize on immediately. You might not. So I can see how using your dice for other things for the immediate benefit, can be a little juicier.
It kind of competes with Den of Thieves a little bit, right? Because for 1 comment, I could shift the fatigue around, and maybe that's good enough to do what this does. It's not as good, but it's good enough. So yeah, it's often competing in that sense. I'll say what I like about it also is that some of the armies I feel like were almost balanced around frequent use of their 2 dice abilities, especially their 2 times common.
Yeah.
This one doesn't feel that way. This is, to me, is use it when you can, when it's right, but you don't need it to win games or compete in games with the free companies. So it's there, it's cool, but you don't have to use it if you can't find the dice. I think you still have a good shot.
Yeah, good one. All right. Coming up to deception here. Common or rare, shooting or melee. And I'll let you take us through. What does this one do?
So, I'll say this. I just started painting up my first 40K figures. They're Tau. This is basically like you take the option to equip your crossbow, replace one of your figures with a railgun model, right? So it's what it feels like when you use this. Now, it is shooting or melee. So let's do the shooting one first. I think that's the most common way it's used. Maybe not the best way, but the common way it's used. So either way, whether you use it in shooting or melee, you get 2 attack dice. Right away, this is an incredible ability for an army with crossbow levy. I don't think anyone else can gain attack dice like maybe someone can, I'm not thinking of.
That's a good point, actually. I would have to look through
you
the
can get
boards
other effects, like they got to reroll a save, or they take fatigue if you wound them, or they're slowed down. There's a lot of other effects. But if you look at armies that can gain shooting dice, they're bow armies. Or sometimes they're like, they have crossbows, but they're warriors, I think. But here it's crossbow levy gaining 2 dice. This is like shades of my old Crusader board before it was nerfed. So I love it. Just if it said nothing else, I'd be using this all the time. But it does say something else, which is mostly good, but sometimes bad. So the first casualty your opponent removes must be removed from a different non-hero unit in their warband that is within M of the unit you target, whether it's with melee or shooting again. So your happy path with the free companies is turn one, your opponent's like, I'm going to get shot, but they're going to shoot my levy. I don't care. So you roll forward and you shoot into their levy. And you play this. Well, first of all, you got 8 attack dice hitting on 2s, which is pretty cool. But then they realize, especially if you played their rare, but the common is usually enough to annoy them, that they've got the only unit that's not their warlord that's within M is a Hearthguard unit.
Hearthguard.
Sorry, friend. You're still going to lose some levy, but you're also going to lose 1 or maybe 2 Hearthguard. So in shooting, to me, this is like you got the one guy with the railgun that just like punches through. Because it is a range extender. Think about the range extension.
Oh, yeah, good point.
You shoot someone that's at max range, and then at the tail end of that unit could be another M reaching off. Like the theoretical range on this, I don't know what it is, but it's almost 24 inches, I think.
Could be, yeah.
So very cool in shooting. In melee, it reminds me of my first Saga army, the Polish, who have a rare ability that lets you punch casualties through it called Linebreaker. This is very reminiscent to me of that. So in melee, you can do the same thing. And in melee, of course, casualties are much more likely to happen to the enemy. And so in melee, while I haven't used it as much that way, certainly it could be good. I suspect that if you like to play free companies more than I have so far, with a heavy mounted presence on your warlord and your Hearthguard, you could do some real work with this slamming into the soft target, punching stuff through. I will say the best that I've ever done with this was shooting at a 2-pack of Burgundian Levy that was within M of only a 6-pack of Burgundian Levy. Killed the one model to remove the Saga die, and then fatigue bombed onto it by killing the other 2 in the first one. So, and the last thing I'll say on this is cowardice. If you're super clever, you use cowardice to push something back such that now this works where it didn't before. So you push their levy back to within M of the Hearthguard. And
if they're real careful to...
They've been real careful, but not careful enough. Because if they move away from their Hearthguard to prevent this, guess what? They're not within S of a unit of Hearthguard, so you can cowardice them down. There's a reason people hate this board. You know?
Can't win. It's funny.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we should clarify. You can use it in melee. So how does Renegades and Deception interact with each other, or not? I don't think that they really do. But just to kind of clarify for like a new player or something.
This would come up with Renegades. It would also come up, because the book Hope in the book mentions this, it can come up with Bodyguards, and in a different way, it comes up with Resilience as well.
Yeah, good point.
So Bodyguards and Renegades, the models you're removing from outside the unit that's in melee, those aren't going to count for Renegades. It's only models lost in the unit that's in the melee.
Yeah, it says the same troop type as the enemy unit that you're fighting. So
and the bodyguard thing is theoretical, right? Because who has that? But if some legendary unit had it or whatever that wasn't a hero, it could matter. With Resilience, what Hope says is you apply effects in order, and the attacker's effects apply first. And so if the unit has Resilience, actually this will punch through and deliver the outside unit casualties, and only then later can the defender use Resilience. He doesn't say it. I suppose it's inverted if you're the defender.
All right. Yeah. Good to clarify that. All right. And we got to the last ability here. So sometimes something juicy with a rare here, but I would say this is something juicy with the common, even better.
Even better.
Villainy. We got a melee common dice, gain 2 defense dice, and you can discard up to 3 attack dice to gain as many defense dice as you discarded attack dice. So you can discard 3 and get 3 more defense dice to add to the 2, so you can end up pretty easily with 5 defense dice, which is a pretty goodly sum in the game of Saga, no matter what age you're playing. You know, I don't know, a couple armies can maybe get more than 5, but that's a pretty good number, I think.
Yeah. So for my army composition, the reason I started on foot is I've talked about a few things. There's a terrain play here. There's some benefit for higher armor with the shooting reaction and all that. But it was mainly this ability, and my either scorching hot or ice cold take, depending on who's listening to it, is this is the best ability on the board, or maybe put differently, this is the ability that makes the army work. And it's very unassuming when you first see it, but it's incredible. The reality of most Saga play, and I would say especially in Age of Chivalry, is you can't hurt the opponent on their turn. I mean, don't give me, I mean, the dice might go your way, that crazy stuff happens, right? Mm-hmm. But usually you can't. The nature of the defensive abilities in this age, it's often one or two big melees. Often what you're dealing with is they're moving around to some objectives, one minor melee, one shooting attack, and then one big melee is coming at you. And you are not going to hurt them there. And they're going to try as hard as they can to hurt you. And they're going to have +1, another 6 attack dice, another 3 bonus attack dice. But you get the idea, right? Re-rolling their misses. This is so good to just close ranks. Give up your 3 attack dice and have 5 defense dice. On average, 2 to 3 of these are extra saves, and they're already going to save half just because you closed ranks. Mm-hmm. I cannot tell you how many melees opponents have had where they thought it was in the bag, and this is just, it's the nope card. Nope. No win. No, I didn't do anything to you, but no win. And if you really want to get clever with this, it can be used on the attack to set up certain plays where you can kind of you got to do the one charge where you're like, this is going to suck. But it's got to happen. Yeah. I have to send someone first. Send them in with this, take the 5 extra defense dice, let the chips fall where they may, but you have a good chance of not losing much. You won't do much either, probably, but that was never the point. You were trying to go in with trickery or whatever to set them up for the big one that's coming. This is good for that. Or you're defending with 2 Hearthguard models, you close ranks, you're down to 4 attack dice. You can play Cruel Slaughter. Sorry, you're down to, what would you be down to 2 attack dice? Play Cruel Slaughter because they're warriors. Get all these extra attack dice you can't keep anyway. Villainy, and we're good. Nothing wasted. So I obviously love this ability. I think it is the linchpin of the army. Their overall play style, the way I do it, is a steady advance. There's no fatigue-free moves here. There's no range extended moves here. You don't have that. It's a steady advance, a measured advance, looking for the opportunity through your trickery and subterfuge to set up an advantageous situation, to pressure them with that deadly shooting from your railgun guys. And as such, you really want them to attack you first. Mm-hmm. And villainy is what makes that all work. I can take that big punch and probably escape with very few losses.
Yeah, I'd really 5 defense dice, closing ranks. It's tough to get through. I mean, you just basically have to discount that melee. Your opponent has to set up a completely second melee, and you get to watch and see. You're going to pop the Saga abilities for this one or that one. I would say there's definitely like a psychological aspect for me. Playing against this, I really, I'll shift my targets to stuff that can't close ranks specifically because of this ability. So this is like the 3rd or the 4th ability where I might play different because of just the abilities that exist, whether you use them or not. So it's kind of, everything being even, I'm kind of off my usual game because I'm trying to factor in all these other potential downsides and trying not to leave myself hanging. But yeah, it's great. Just that one die gives you the rest of your dice to play with, and you can feel safe. You might set up sneaks and robbers, but you don't have to, it's not like a 2 or 3 die thing to get the defense going. Just this one here is good enough to see you through most of the time.
And so people often ask, if you have your three game pre-dice, what do you use first? For me, this is it. This is the one that, as long as I get the common, it goes there because I know I need it. So I love this ability.
Awesome. Well, we have made it through to the end here. And do you have fun playing the free companies?
Uh, playing as them? Yeah.
Yeah.
The
That's
truth
the
is,
question.
I've played against them a lot. I even have fun playing against them. They force
Okay.
me, like you said, I think, they force me to rethink how I play in really interesting ways. But so, Rod, you and I had a match with my Gots against your Yams Vikings.
Yammers.
And
Yeah.
that was the opposite of this, right? That basically was if I use the one thing that makes the Gots fun for me, I give you 4 free movements, 4 free shooting, and it's all fatigue free.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's not fun. That's just, I don't want to, like, I can't play my army. But playing against the free companies is not like that. You just got to think differently. So with the Swiss, for example, as bad as cowardice is for them, I've won games into the free company because I played my army differently. I went outside my comfort zone, and it made me do that, this board. And playing as them, I love it. This has everything I love in a Saga board. It has super weird and unexpected abilities that are unlike anything else in the game. It has no lockout. I detest ability lockout. If I can avoid it, I do. Every one of these abilities can be used by every single unit, from the 1-man levy to the 8-man Hearthguard. All of them can use these abilities. So that means the scope of clever or not so clever, self-defeating plays that I can execute is limited only by my imagination and the table state, right? So I love that, and it is not rare dependent. So almost always there's something.
Not even one ability that requires the rare.
I wish they had pikes.
Or boost. Well, you could take a mercenary pike. You can, right?
And I've done it. I've taken the pike, man. They're pretty cool unit. And I think you're right. You could use this army could be used to represent a lot of things that are maybe unexpected. I heard someone saying they wanted to use it to represent Ottomans. You could use it for, as long as you don't take your pike guys, you could bring Swiss, and instead of using mercenaries for their light horse or the knights of Lorraine or whatever, you could actually just use them as part of your warband here. So this army also is kind of a blank slate when you look at the board here. It's not got fancy Latin or French or anything like that. You're just the bad guys.
Most of the way there, even with the Swiss, or even like Scots or Flemings, there's something there that you can use. So you got a little head start. I want to say, so the English video came out, and our consensus was, unfortunately, it's not a good starting warband for a lot of folks. So I think the free companies is a good place to start for a new player. And I'm going to say why, because one kind of tactic that the new players tend to use is just throw every Saga die into one massive attack. And, that can work for you, against equal skilled opponents. That can see through. Oftentimes, it's a tit for tat kind of thing. That kind of play style. You wipe something out, then you go down, kind of haymakers. But and actually with the free companies, when you do that, you're actually getting so much. You're getting like a lot more when you do that. You're hammering a unit. It's pretty easy, not easy, but you can set up with Den of Thieves, the Spiteful Hate. You're kind of setting yourself up for the big hammer is fairly straightforward. Mm-hmm. And then if you pop everything else, you're wiping out an enemy unit. Hopefully you are. You're resurrecting some of your troops. You killed some figures adjacent to the enemy unit, so you affected another unit. And then potentially even after the fight, you're fatigue free, and you've put a fatigue on like a third enemy unit has been affected just by this one melee. So that tactic, I think, is whether you want to do that or not. But if you're a new player, that's kind of just kind of how people start, and I think it works pretty well, just with the nature of the abilities here, and you can have a bigger impact than just knocking out an enemy unit. And if you're fatigue free and you have villainy and you just did the one thing, that's like the natural. They're going to try to compete it up, but you got the dice there to kind of withstand one attack at least. So I think just kind of the nature of the abilities, I think it just kind of lends itself to doing well in the hands of a new player based off that. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
I completely agree. To me, the English are a 3-star army because actually doing what they're supposed to do requires a tremendous amount of solid Saga game knowledge and skill and a little bit of luck, but a lot of knowledge and skill. This to me is the inverse. Everything you said, plus a couple things. Like we said at the start, you're getting the very bit. You can run this as a Vikings army with crossbows.
Oh, yeah.
5/5,
yeah.
4/4.
Yeah.
Plus, you know what? If you really want to run it as Vikings, they've got bow levy, right? So you can run this as like the Age of Vikings core. And the extra stuff it's got, aside from the Pavis, is also very much core Saga. It's just the mounted guys, right? They don't have boarding. They don't have composite bows. There's no javelins. There's no pikes. Now, Saga veterans will often look at those troop types like that the Italian states have there and say, these are the real, if you want to win, you need pikes or composite bows or whatever.
Sure,
but for the new player, those things are a trap. Right, they're going to botch those things more than they're going to do well with them. So this keeps you out of that, and it's got 2 big safety valves. It's got mob violence. If you totally screwed up your activation plan, at least if you have a die there, you can do 2 things: 2 moves or 2 charges. And like you say, villainy is the ultimate. Like, whoops, oh, this is going to hurt, but maybe it won't because I left a common, and it's not a rare or 2 dice. It's leave the common here, and this is your panic button as the new player. All this melee is going south. Villainy gives you a chance to emerge from it and at least not fatigue bomb your army. So, yeah, I completely agree. I think these might be easier than the French, which are also 1-star, because the French, to really work, and they can be dominant, don't get me wrong, you actually have to have a very specific way of sequencing your charges and activations to get the most of bodyguards and fatigue removal, punch, reobey, determination, all that.
Yeah, I agree. That aspect, will be a little more difficult for a new player. I mean, it's straightforward, but you get the most out of it. You got to choose your targets and stuff like that. Where this one is like, I'm going to get those guys. I'm going to use Den of Thieves. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to get them. And then 2, we kind of talked about the dice facings, doesn't need a rare. So, some boards you're hampered by what you roll, to some degree. I mean, that's the game of Saga, obviously. But this one, you could pretty much do almost all these abilities. So you're really just kind of deciding, they're going to decide which ones they're going to use. They're never really, I think you said, like locked out of any of these abilities. It comes down to them. And, if they make the wrong decision, it's because they made the wrong decision. They'll learn from it. It's not because like the dice were working against them. So I think that's also a good kind of aspect to any board that is played by a newer player. We're salty veterans. We understand that that's the game with certain boards, and you kind of that's part of the appeal. But I think it's good board for the newer players.
And the activation phase guys, I think, said that they saw it being run with even 3 Hearthguard, also new player friendly. The more Hearthguard board,
just less
fewer models.
They want to use the full plate knight figures, and I think everything here, like as you say, definitely can get away with that. So, a lot of good stuff here. Good to have a warband like this, I think, and can't beat them. Just join them.
That's right.
If
they're always hiring.
Yeah, if you think there's something wrong with this, guys, we'll take them up. And once you play a warband, you kind of quickly understand, where the constraints are and the dice and the things you can or can't do. When you're playing against them, it feels like you're just eating everything and there's no solution. So give them a try. But I have fun playing with and against these guys. I've dabbled a little bit right when I started with them, but very, very cool warband. And thanks for coming on. Thanks for volunteering to share your knowledge here, Dan. Always appreciate it.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me on, Rodge. Great discussion. I love this army. I hope anyone who hasn't given them a try at least considers it. I think you'll have a great time.
Definitely. All right. Before we go, I do want to thank Sean, Patrick, Mitchell, Scott, Britt, DJ, Robin, Damian, Caledon, Cruz, and the rest of the Saga Thursday patrons. I believe, Dan, you are a patron as well. Thank you, sir, for your support. Wouldn't be doing a video every week in 2025 without the support of the crew, the Heathen Army. So much appreciated. And definitely comment below if you played with or against the free companies. I suspect that's most people who've played Age of Chivalry have probably tangled with or against them. And yeah, I'm curious about the figures being used. Are these the secondary war bands being, you're reusing your figures for these guys, or like the idea of the Ottomans being used for these? I think that's really, really interesting and a really cool way to get those guys represented. But yeah, let us know how your game goes. If you, what configuration of troops you like to use. Yeah, any thoughts here, let us know. But all right, Dan, thanks again. We'll check you later.
All right.
Saga. If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.